The honourable member for Winnipeg Centre.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And today I'm going to share the words of Cambria Harris, daughter of Morgan Harris. We talk so much in here, and now it's time to listen to what families and survivors want. My name is Cambria Harris. My spirit name is West Flying Sparrow Woman. I'm a member of Long Plain First Nation, but I live in Winnipeg, Manitoba. I am 21 years old, and I'm the eldest daughter of my deceased mother, Morgan Harris. We all know why I'm here today, and I thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak, but I'm sad for the reasons I have to come here. It pains me to say that this week has been one of the hardest for Indigenous peoples. This horrific situation has shaken us as our nation and angered Indigenous people and strangers worldwide. What has happened is despicable, and I'm utterly shocked and saddened to hear that far more beautiful, innocent Indigenous lives were taken at the expense of a monster, including my mother, Morgan Harris, Mercedes Myron, Rebecca Contois, and still one lost sister who has now been named Buffalo Woman. Remember these names, shout them from the roof of your lungs, and bring justice for these deceased women. Time and time again, the system has failed vulnerable women and people, specifically Indigenous. I want you to understand that every single one of these women are beautiful human beings. They are loved, they are mothers, they are sisters, they are someone. Our women, those who bring life to this world, are considered sacred, and we need to start treating them like so. We need to end this violence against our women. Each and every one of these women lived a full life of stories and love. They deserve to be remembered for who they are, rather the way they passed on. It breaks my... Sorry, Madam Speaker, I'm sharing the words of the victim's child, and Conservative members are choosing this time to chat. And I find that disrespectful. If you can stop my time to respect these families.
I want to remind members that this Take Note debate is in play at the moment, and the issue, just like every other issue, is very important, and I would ask members to please respect members here in the House, and if they wish to have discussions, they should take them outside to have those discussions in the lobby would be appropriate. The honourable member for Winnipeg Centre. Un appel au règlement, l'honorable député.
The honourable member for Bourgneuf-Jacques-Cartier. I've just heard the comment from my colleague who is accusing Conservative MPs of having discussions, but I look around us. We're not talking with anyone, so perhaps she has misidentified. I believe there were MPs, yes, and there were some that were Conservative, still are, be it Conservatives, Liberals, the Bloc Québécois. When there is a debate in the House, it is important to respect the way that the House operates. The person speaking should have a respect of all of the chamber during debates. And so, inaudible microphone is not on. I would just like to add to the matter that, yes, there were some members of Parliament who were entertaining discussions. I won't say if they were Conservatives or not. I believe that it was that there are other MPs elsewhere in the House from other parties. I don't know who was speaking in that sector of the House of Commons, and the honourable member rose and asked for respect given from what she was hearing on her side of the House of Commons. That is that.
The honourable member for Winnipeg Centre.
They deserve to be remembered for who they are, rather than the way they passed on. It breaks me to see our women fall through the cracks of society over and over again. Throughout my teens, I've watched and I've heard the horror stories of Indigenous women going missing and many never found. And when they're found deceased in the most horrible, gruesome ways, and all you can do is cry and hope your loved ones aren't next. I was there back when Tina Fontaine went missing, and I protested when she was found because it hurt me personally as a young Indigenous girl. Tina was around my age at that time, and there was protesting and rallying for her at the police station, demanding change as a sniper looked over us. I was at the Take Back the Night marches, shouting for our women and how we shouldn't have to be afraid to go out at the streets at night. That is why I'm here today. We are not meant to be forgotten, and we won't be. We are here forever as we should be. These women have been a voice, and they deserve to be heard and paid the respect and love, and they need and needed before. Over the last decade, I've watched the news stories of families mourning their missing loved ones. I've watched stories unfold from when they go missing and when they're found in the worst ways. What happened last week and what has been happening for a very long time is a hate crime and Indigenous genocide. This needs to seriously change. These monsters lurking within our society, how do we begin to pick them out and stop them before they seriously harm somebody? When all the hints were there and that they were going to hurt someone. What's frightening is how these disgusting creatures present themselves as friends. They hide in the corners and shadows, only brought to face when they've murdered our women. You guys have the power to make change and do our part in this by crying all the missing and murdered Indigenous people the justice and respect they need. The system put in place, the system that was meant to protect these women and keep them from harm, failed them miserably and horribly. I'm angered by this, and I am heartbroken for families and victims affected by this and my Indigenous brothers and sisters. I've watched a nation come together in the most beautiful of ways for the most heartbreaking and gut-wrenching situation. This needs to end. I've watched this happen too many times. It has become a story that is familiar not only for myself, but for other Indigenous people. My mother, Morgan Harris, was a bright and loving soul. She had given birth to me when she was only 18 years old, and this breaks my heart because I am blessed to be a mother of 2.5-year-old, and I gave birth at 19. My mother will never, ever get to meet her grandmother, and she will never have a chance at having that sort of bond with her. That was ripped away from my mother and daughter, and my mother was ripped away from me at the expense of a monster and vile creature. With that being said, I'm able to understand the struggles my mother went through having a child so young and then going to give birth to 4 more while struggling with addiction. She had been struggling with addiction since I was a small girl, but she still shielded me from the horrors of the world. And I remember when I was younger, I had gone for a sleepover at my Aunt Crystal's, and by the time we got back to our childhood home on Simcoe, my house was surrounded by police and garbage bags. I didn't get to see her up close, but she yelled at me from the house while I was in the car, saying to me that I was going for a sleepover to my aunt's and that she loved me and how she'd get me back. I believed her. That sleepover occurred in 2006, ended up lasting until I was 17. I didn't understand what she was going through then because she did such a good job protecting me from it. But I understand now it was never her fault. That was the start of it all. And through the years of growing up in CFS and between having visits with her as a young child, I watched my mom slowly lose herself to addiction in the most heartbreaking way. Mental illness took over and the help for her became less and less, and I watched my mother cry for help as well as my family. But she did the best. But she did the best with what she had. She was a smart woman, an absolutely bright, loving soul. She had a smile you'll never forget. It breaks my soul to know that the system put in place that was supposed to protect her failed her, and watched as she fell and cried. She was in and out of treatment centers and homelessness, constantly living on the streets for as long as I can remember, but that didn't stop her. That didn't stop her from seeing me and still being able to be a great, amazing mother for me. She was a great mother, and I might have been in CFS, but I did get visits with her, and then I did see her. My mother always made a point of being with me separately, making sure she spent quality time with me because she herself knew she couldn't be there in the way she could so badly wanted to because these systems had failed her. She didn't get to leave this earth with a home. She didn't get to pass away next to her loved ones, and she was loved by friends and families and strangers all around. Throughout the short years of her life, she had to live in fear, hiding from sirens, people, and constantly living in fear of dangers that lurked around at night while we're all blessed to sleep in our beds. She lived in fear, and she left the earth in a disastrous way. But you know what? For someone so small, 5-foot gesture, she was a feisty woman. She had a passion and an often burning goodness in her heart. Anyone who looked at this tiny woman the way would be sorry. The wrong way would be sorry. She fought for what she cared about, and everyone loved it and her confidence. She was extremely cared for by many, and since this heartbreaking news broke out, I have received substantial amounts of support, and I've heard stories of people who knew her. She was living on the streets, and how she always made a point and an impact on someone. Everyone always remembered her name. She was the funniest person I knew, and she was always making me laugh along with others. And I want you to remember my mother, Morgan, as a strong, resilient woman. She had to do what she needed to do, but to survive. And unfortunately, it's unfortunate how she left. Let's pay her the respect and love she deserves by giving her a home finally. And that would be finding her and Mercedes and Buffalo Woman from the landfill or wherever else they may be. Your government started this genocide, and now you must help us fix it. Thank you.
Question?